British English traditionally has tour. Tour. And that's what you would find in practically all dictionaries. Tour. Now, tour is probably used by the Queen. Or by very older people. Younger people say something like tour. They use the vowel of pour, zampa, for example, or pour liquid. I don't say pour liquid, I say pour liquid. And pour is in the opposite of rich, which traditionally was poor. But again, it's pour. So the pronunciation is changing. Some people say tur for tour, but again. Americans would say tour, usually, yes. Again, it's the same thing. I say tourist, but some people would say tourist, others would say tourist. But tourist sounds very, very old-fashioned, okay? But it's up to you. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to sound old-fashioned, it's you. I mean, when I was studying pronunciation in the UK and met many of my colleagues, sometimes we were discussing pronunciations, and they said to me, well, this pronunciation is old-fashioned. Don't use that because you might sound... People of your age don't say that. But again, it very much depends on your age. It's up to you. And again, we're not talking about something that is not correct. In this case, you can say tour. They're all correct, but it's up to you. Adult. Again, I say adult. Because there's a tendency in British English to prefer adult, but Americans, for example, would say adult. Okay, it's up to you. Again, both acceptable. The verb ate. Now, I say ate, but old people would say et. And I was taught et when I was in school, but my teacher was very old, and she said, no, we say et. I said, no, ate. And it's in the dictionary. In fact, you would be surprised to find ate in the dictionary. Now, let's see if I can show you this.
Eight.
Now, the dictionary has preference polls, and it shows you graphs for the pronunciations that are uncertain. Not even native speakers know how to say that word. So, as you can see, according to the people who were polled, basically, who were asked whether they said et, which is the light blue one, and ate, the grey one, 55% of the people who responded to the questionnaire proposed by John Wells, they say et. But if you look at the graph below, you can see that the younger population, they tend to prefer ate today. So again, older people would say et. The younger people say ate. Okay, so I think we can go on. We could go on and on, but now you can choose your word and maybe discuss the pronunciation if you want. I've got so many. Which are you interested in? Which of these? The last one. Okay, how do you say the last one? We'll go back to your word in a moment. Oh, the last one you mean? Yes, I say kilometre. But, and kilometre is the usual pronunciation indicated by dictionaries, kilometre. But some people say kilometre. That's probably less common. Americans would say kilometre. Okay. But they're both used. Oh, yes. Yes. You'd be surprised to hear that some native speakers say amphitheatre. Amphi. Not amphi, but amphitheatre. That's usually the Americans. I say amphitheatre with amphi because PH is like Yes, amphitheatre, but some people say amphitheatre. That's what it's in the dictionary. It's indicated. Data, yes. I say data, and that's the usual pronunciation. Some people say data. Some people say data. Americans would say data, data, or data. Again, they're all possible. If you look up this word in the dictionary, you'll see a graph with lots of lots of pies and lots of arrows indicating all sorts of possible pronunciations. I guess you want to know something about necessary. Most Italians would say necessari. It's not you, but most Italians, and that's not possible. In English, you say necessary or necessary, but you don't say necessary and you don't say necessary, with stress on the first syllable, necessary. Princess, I guess some of your tourists come from Civitavecchia, and they come from ships which are called something like princess or whatever. Now, I say princess, but some people say princess, others say princess. And that word is quite odd because it can change the accentuation depending on the words that follow. For example, in Manchester, there is a street called Prince's Street, and that's usually pronounced Prince's Street, not Princess Street. That's because you have another word after princess. Privacy. I'm sure you've heard all sorts of pronunciations for restaurant. I don't know. Well, I say restaurant. Some people say restaurant, others say restaurant, whatever. Sandwich. I say sandwich, not sandwich. Why? Why do you think people say sandwich? With m. It's because the D in sandwich is not usually pronounced. And if you don't pronounce the D, the N and the W sounds, they become similar, and so the N becomes similar to W, which uses the lips, basically. So sandwich, it anticipates the pronunciation of the W. It's not wrong to say sandwich or sandwich, but it's also common to say sandwich. Sandwich. What else? Tube. Tube. How do you say that? Tube. Yes. Well, the older pronunciation is tube. Tia. The usual pronunciation is tube. Tube today. It's like, how do you know, how'd you know, like before. Would you like, would you like. If you say would you like, you sound very old-fashioned. Very old-fashioned. Because nobody would say, would you like a cup of coffee? It's very old-fashioned. Very old-fashioned. Everybody would say, would you like, would you like, would you like. The same in... because the pattern is, if you have a sound, if you have a D sound, and the next word begins with y, then you can actually assimilate the two sounds. So you can get either ch or j. You can find all this information on the handout. If you want, we can take a look at the handout together, just to sum up. Suit. Suit in the past, that would have been suit, but today it's suit. Suitcase, not suitcase. If you have dictionaries published by Garzanti, Zanichelli, for example, I'm sorry, but the pronunciations you will find are likely to be the older ones, because dictionaries are updated from the point of view of the lexis, the new words, but they don't change the pronunciations. I don't know why, but in Italy we seem not to have a phonetician who's interested in basically changing the pronunciation. Some of them are completely wrong. I I'm writing a dictionary on medical English pronunciation, and I'm checking lots of dictionaries, and I see that for many words, the pronunciations given are just not there. They're just inexistent, non-existent. So I was once looking up century in the Garzanti, and I found out that they think that century is pronounced century. Now, century, this is the pronunciation they give you, is basically not an English pronunciation, okay? So be careful. If you want to look up pronunciations, you can find lots of stuff on my blog. There is a dictionary, apart from the Longman Pronunciation Dictionary. This is something you have to buy, but imagine you want something that you can find on the internet that's for free, which is excellent. One dictionary that you might want to use is the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. It's free, you don't have to download it. You can Google for OALD, and you'll find it. It's not a pronunciation dictionary, but it has lots of pronunciations that... yes, Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. The dictionary is gets yearly updates every March or October, and there's lots of pronunciations. All of them have audio clips, so you can listen to, try, for example, and listen to words like them, of. You will find all of the possible pronunciations, at least the pronunciations the authors think are possible for non-native speakers. Okay, let's take a look at some of these things on the photocopy. Now here, I describe some changes that have taken place in English pronunciation. I'm talking about British pronunciation. Sometimes during the course, because I know it's useful for you, I compare British pronunciation with American pronunciations because you might want to know something about it as well. So, but I think you need to start from one pronunciation, and then you can compare that to others. Otherwise, you get confused. Recent changes. Do you have a photocopy? Can I hold this out for you? I'll take another one. Has everybody got one? Yes, okay. Recent changes, early 20th century. In words like cloth, cough, cross, lost, off, and often, or often, the vowel today is o, but in the past it was or. So the Queen, for example, still sometimes says cloth, cough, cross. It's very rare to hear people use this vowel, the vowel or, today, but it's possible. It's the same word. So don't say often, but say often. I hear lots of Italians say often. No, that is not used. Say often with o. Then words like, for example, floor and floor, F-L-A-W, that's the second point. They are merged today. So I say floor and floor. But in the past, their pronunciation would have been different. Floor, pavimento, would have been floor. And floor, F-L-A-W would have been floor. Today it's the same, floor, floor. The same for, source, sauce. It's the same. Then the pronunciation of the O sound, the O diphthong, in words like goat, over the road, oh no. Now there's lots of different variant pronunciations, but the usual one is O today, O. And in the past, it was something like O. O. Today it's O. In the past, O. O, by the way, is mostly used by Americans. Why? Because American pronunciation is a bit old-fashioned. Yes. Compared with British pronunciation, American pronunciation is old-fashioned. It contains lots of pronunciations that in British English people do not use. In words like obey, November, biological, microphone, I use today. So I say November, biological, microphone. But in the past, it would have been or. So people would have said obey, November, and so on. This is what people still say, non-native speakers still sometimes say today. I hear lots of people say, in November. No, that's in November, not November. But these are just minutiae. Then the a sound. Now this a sound is different from American English. Now in British English, it is a today, sort of like a in Italian. So I say that bad man, not that bad man. That would be American English. Okay. Some Americans tend to use a vowel which is similar to e. So they would say something like bad man, especially with a nasal consonant, as in man. Okay, that's more American. British English has a, so man, bad, and so on. And then in words with an R, as in very sorry for any errors. Now, R in English, British English pronunciation is not r. R is, in fact, the pronunciation used about 100 years ago. And that's what Italians sometimes use. So many Italians say, very sorry for any errors. Of course, that's not a problem, but with we go back to the irritating adjective that we discussed before. Many people might find this irritating because they know it's not a sound they use any longer. Scottish people still use r sometimes, but they're semi-rhotic, which means that sometimes they use r, sometimes they use r. They don't know when to use